On June 24, 2011, an 18-year-old center with two first names was drafted into the NHL 15th overall by the New York Rangers. Jonathan Tanner Miller, better known as JT Miller. Described as a guy who opponents will hate because of how hard he plays and drawing comparisons to pesky two-way players like Ryan Kesler, JT was poised to become one of the league's most impactful power forwards. But in his first two NHL seasons, Miller notched just 10 points in 56 games, leading to the Rangers head coach at the time, Alain Vigneault, calling him out publicly, saying,
"JT hasn't earned the right to be at this level on a regular basis. He has to figure it out, and hopefully he will, because when he does, we're going to have a good player. If he doesn't, he'll be a good minor league player."
Ouch. Whether it was the sting of his head coach's publicized tough love or the frustration of watching from the press box as his team battled for the Stanley Cup without him, the young forward seemed to get the message loud and clear. Determined to prove he belonged in the NHL, Miller came back with a renewed focus, and over the next two seasons, his game took a major leap forward, and signs of a budding superstar were finally starting to show. However, midway through his first 20-goal season, Miller's role on the team started shrinking, and again, head coach Alain Vigneault took to the media to explain the decision.
"We're working quite a bit with JT to improve some of his decisions with the puck. You can't force things that aren't there. It got to the point where we had to cut his ice time a little bit."
Miller had hit a wall in his development. He was stuck at just under 17 minutes of ice time per game, and as he entered the final year of his contract, his future with the Rangers was in question. While on pace for another middle-of-the-road 50-point season, after a televised shouting match with Rangers legend Henrik Lundqvist, JT's time in the Big Apple was finally up. He accumulated 172 points in the 5.5 seasons he played with the Rangers before being dealt to the Tampa Bay Lightning at the 2018 trade deadline, where he would finish the season strong, tallying 10 goals and 18 points in his first 19 games with his new squad. The Lightning went on a deep playoff run that year, but were eliminated in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals by the eventual Cup winner, the Washington Capitals. Miller notched 8 points over the course of Tampa's 17-game playoff run that year. JT and the Lightning went into the next season with a vengeance and finished first place in the entire league, but not only that, they tied the record for the best regular season in NHL history, only to get swept in the first round by the Columbus Blue Jackets, a team that had never even won a playoff round up until that point. Miller was traded to the Vancouver Canucks the following summer.
Lightning dealing JT Miller and his $5.2 million contract to the Vancouver Canucks. Tampa Bay receiving 2 draft picks and a minor league goaltender prospect.
From the very second the puck was dropped in Miller's first game in Vancouver, it was clear the Canucks had found themselves a bona fide superstar. However, the team failed to make the playoffs in 3 of the next 4 seasons, and in the midst of that frustration, JT was never shy when it came to telling us how he really felt.
"I don't even know why this is even being talked about. Maybe I shouldn't have done what I did, but it's not out of anger. I was letting him know to go to the bench. I have full control of the puck. That's all it was. And yeah, I don't think it's anybody's business."
I mean, he wants to win so bad, and sometimes he maybe gets too hot-headed.
When things aren't going well for this amount of time, it's hard. It's really, really hard mentally to stay the course and to win games. And I think when we get everybody to buy in, we're a really hard team to play against.
Is everyone buying in right now?
I don't.
Despite the team's struggles, in September of 2022, Miller chose to re-sign with the Canucks for a whopping 7 more years. With an animalistic desire to win and an ironclad dedication to his team, Miller's 5th season in Vancouver was one to remember. Not only did he hit 100 points for the first time in his career, but he helped turn the 2023-2024 Vancouver Canucks into an absolute powerhouse, finishing the season with one of the best records in franchise history, pulling them out of mediocrity and into Stanley Cup contention. Despite falling short in Game 7 of the second round against the Edmonton Oilers, things were looking up for the Canucks for the first time in years, and JT Miller was a huge reason why. After witnessing the resilience of his teammates and the electricity of Vancouver during the playoffs, he wanted nothing more than to get back there as soon as possible.
Well, I'll tell you what, it hit me emotionally at the end of the game when they're cheering for us. When you see that, you're in a good place at a good market, and it's just the beginning of hopefully really good things here in the future. I think we have a good thing going here, and I just believe that we're going to be a good hockey team, and we're going to have another opportunity at this.
But due to a combination of injury troubles, multiple benchings, a 10-game leave of absence, and a rumored feud with teammate and fellow superstar Elias Pettersson, JT Miller's 6th season as a Canuck hasn't gone the way he or any of us envisioned it would. But there's still time. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Nuckhead, and I'm reviewing every single game the Vancouver Canucks played this year from preseason to playoffs, so if you want to stay up to date with the team, hit subscribe, you won't regret it. Now, I'm gonna move through Game 44 against the Los Angeles Kings fairly quickly because after watching this one live, I felt like shoving myself in a locker. The big question heading into this one was whether the Canucks would seek revenge on Tanner Jeannot for his hit on Brock Boeser earlier this season. If you need a refresher, here's what happened. Just over 10 minutes into the first period, out of nowhere, Kings forward Tanner Jeannot injured Brock Boeser with an illegal check to the head. This is the exact type of blindside hit that the NHL and its players have been trying to remove from the game for the past 15 years. And honestly, they've done a pretty good job, especially when you consider how often it used to happen, but still, occasionally you'll see a replay of some absolute goof doing something like this, and man, I'm livid. Boeser ended up missing 7 games because of that hit, and while the league did slap Jeannot with a 3-game suspension, Brock's teammates were still keen to toss him around a little bit. And they did. Kind of. Kudos to Vinny Desharnais for stepping up, but it wasn't all that satisfying, and it didn't help that LA took a 3-0 lead 10 minutes into the game. Yeah. Quinn Hughes managed to cut the Kings' lead to 2 goals in the second period, but the 28-year-old native of Switzerland, Kevin Fiala, restored his team's 3-goal lead just 60 seconds later to make it 4-1 LA. It's worth noting that on this goal, JT Miller's efforts seemed, well, absent, and you can see him sitting on the bench after, hanging his head in frustration, but what's interesting is Tocchet walked over to him, said something, and JT responded by getting up and scooting down to the end of the bench. I don't know what Tocchet said, so I don't know if Miller's response was understanding or dismissive or argumentative, but I do know that Vancouver added to their growing list of blowout losses on home ice by losing 5-1 to the Los Angeles Kings. And this is where the JT Miller story gets incredibly disheartening for Canucks fans. Just hours before Game 45 against the Edmonton Oilers, Miller was told that he was about to be traded and wouldn't be playing another game for Vancouver. The rumored trade was with the New York Rangers, the team that drafted JT back in 2011. Allegedly, the Canucks were about to send Miller back to New York in exchange for 25-year-old center Philip Hedl, 27-year-old defender Ryan Lindgren, and a 2025 conditional first-round pick. And it's rumored that the only reason the trade didn't go through is because the two teams couldn't agree on the conditions of that first-round pick, so Miller stayed a Canuck for another day and was in the lineup for Game 45 against Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. Now, I'm just going to come right out and say it. This was an awesome game. The Canucks jumped out to an early 3-0 lead in the first period thanks to BC boy Danton Heinen 6th goal of the season and 2 power play goals from the GOAT himself, Captain Quinn Hughes, both assisted by Timothy Miller. Niels Big Hog Höglander was playing well, which is essential for the team but terrible for my vocal cords. Thatcher Demko was in net for the Whale team, making the necessary saves, calm, cool, and collected in great position, so much so that the 2 goals Edmonton did get by him had to come from ridiculous angles, one of which was only made possible thanks to a beautiful tape-to-tape pass from Filip Hronek. 3-2 Canucks. And of course, I gotta talk about Miller, because he was incredible in this game, almost like he realized it could be his last in a Canuck uniform. He was dominant out there. As I already mentioned, he had 2 assists, but he also took 23 faceoffs and won 78.3% of them. Which is impressive enough, but he was going up against guys like Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. Come on. He drew the penalty that led to the Canucks opening the scoring in the first period. He was roughing it up with the Oilers superstars. And while I'm at it, let me shout out my guy Elias the Alien Pettersson, because I've come to learn that when he's not scoring, some people are convinced that he just doesn't do anything, but man, they couldn't be any more wrong about that. And here's a great example. With less than 5 minutes remaining in a 1-goal game, Petey stormed up the ice, laid into Evan Bouchard, chased Mattias Ekholm down and laid into him. By the way, this is the guy low IQ people love to call soft for some reason. I know, it makes no sense. Anyway, he gained possession for his team by diving out to poke check the puck behind the net to Brock Boeser, and just like that, the Canucks were now applying offensive zone pressure that led to a frustrated Ekholm taking a penalty. Ha 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 ha! Pettersson's hard work on that shift resulted in nearly 2.5 minutes of valuable time for the Oilers being killed off the clock. Gorgeous. And finally, I gotta talk about Conor Garland, because that guy was pissing people off all game and it was hilarious. But I'm gonna skip to the part everyone around the league is talking about. In the dying seconds, and I mean dying, we're talking less than 25 seconds remaining in the game, Garland collided with Connor McDavid and proceeded to do what anybody with a brain would do in this moment. He held him. Why on earth would you let the best player in the world skate freely around the ice when your team is only up by 1 goal with 20 seconds left? Seriously, it was genius, because the worst thing that could happen is the refs call a penalty on Garland for holding or interference, but that's a risk worth taking, especially when you consider the fact that JT Miller was an absolute dog in the faceoff circle this game, and I'd bet he'd win that final faceoff for the Canucks and they would just trap the puck in the corner for the remaining seconds. I'd take that chance 10 times out of 10. Again, mega mind move by the Gargoyle. Now, McDavid was pissed, obviously. If he wasn't, that'd be weird. But more importantly, he wanted to tie the game, so in an attempt to break free, he punched Garland in the back of the head, but still couldn't escape the clutches of the much smarter and stronger Canuck forward. So what does he do next? Well, we all know what he did next, but I want to point something out first. The refs didn't call a penalty on Garland on this play, and that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this is textbook interference, and it wasn't called. However, McDavid didn't know that. For all he knew, the refs could have had their arm up behind him. Plus, the Oilers still had possession of the puck, so even if there was a call being made, the whistle wouldn't have blown until the Canucks touched the puck. And here's the thing, they wouldn't have touched the puck. Why would they? They would have stared at it and let the final 10 seconds tick off the clock. Anyway, as you all know, McDavid threw a massive hissy fit, a temper tantrum if you will, cross-checked Garland in the mouth, got suspended 3 games for it, resulting in thousands of Oilers fans flooding the streets of Edmonton with tears and boogers. And believe it or not, the Oilers actually released a statement in response to McDavid's suspension. Let me read it to you.
The Oilers organization is disappointed, and we share in our fans' frustration over the 3-game suspension of our captain, Connor McDavid. We support him through this process, and the organization and our fans look forward to having him back in the lineup for Seattle next week. Oh, God, why?
Tyler Myers was also suspended for 3 games because on that exact play, he cross-checked Evan Bouchard in the face for looking at him funny, but that's fine. Anyway, the Canucks won 3-2, and here's what JT Miller said after the game.
If this was your last game in Vancouver, what does it mean to you to play here?
I'm not getting into this. I'm planning on being a Canuck today, tomorrow. Whatever happens, happens. I'm focused on the next game.
Now, on to Game 46 against the Buffalo Sabres. I'm just gonna be honest here. This game sucked. I mean, it was all right, but the Canucks blew another third-period lead, except this time it was against a team currently ranked 30th out of the league's 32 teams. I know there's no easy games in the NHL, but it's not the fact that they lost, it's the fact that they blew the lead. The only shining spot worth keeping from this game is this goal by Elias Pettersson. It was almost the game winner. Well, I guess not, because they lost, but you know what I mean. Anyway, look, I need to say this now, even if it means this video could be outdated in just a couple hours. Canucks management, listen to me. Do not trade J.T. Miller. Or Elias Pettersson, obviously. We saw what this team was capable of last year, and to the Oilers fans that are inevitably watching this video right now, despite what you might say, our guys had your guys scared to the bone, down 3-2 in round 2 of the playoffs. They're a good team. Yes, they lost, but it was by 1 goal in Game 7. That's something to be proud of. Kinda like how the Oilers lost by 1 goal in Game 7 a little later on, hey? Anyway, listen to me. Do not trade J.T. Miller. Put him on a line with Brock Besser and Pius Suter and let him go. He plays best when he's matched up against the league's best players, so do that as much as possible. Anyway, somehow, for like the 5th video in a row, nobody predicted any scores right, so really, get your thinking caps on for this one and drop your prediction for tonight's game against the Edmonton Oilers in the comments below. I will shout out every single person who gets it right in my next video. But here's the thing, I know a lot of you guys watching right now already know how that game ended, so instead of leaving a prediction, tell me who you think the game's first star was, but you can only pick one, and if I agree with you, I'll feature your comment in my next video. Anyway, thank you to these killer Nuckheads for clicking the join button to become members of the channel and supporting what I do. Thank you for watching, I'll see you soon, bye.
The Oilers organization is disappointed that 2 Nuckhead videos just appeared on the screen and you haven't clicked one of them yet. We support Nuckhead through this process, and the organization and our fans look forward to having you tune in next time he posts a video.